Hello, this is the weekly Tradecast. I'm Sarah Toms. This year is a big milestone for UN Trade and Development as we mark 60 years of transforming lives and building brighter futures. As part of the celebrations, the weekly Tradecast is featuring a series of special episodes. Join us in June for insightful stories on our evolution and impact over the last 6 decades, and even more positive changes in the next 60 years. Coming up now, Mussie Delelegn tells us why small island states need resilience and prosperity as a matter of survival.
The loss in terms of the economic ecosystem, biodiversity, and human loss, it will be difficult, too ghastly to imagine if there is no concrete action taken in terms of building their resilience to this kind of excessive external shocks.
This week, we're talking about low-lying coastal countries and the unique threats they face from climate change. The resilience and prosperity of these countries is the focus of the UN's 4th International Conference on Small Island Developing States, happening in late May. Known as SIDS, these dozens of small island states are the most vulnerable to extreme weather, rising seas, and coastal erosion brought on by climate change. The human and economic costs are enormous. If climate trends continue, some of the islands could soon disappear under the waves. So how can the SIDS build their economies, protect their people, and mitigate the impact of climate change? Well, joining me now is senior economist Mussie Delelegn from the Division for Africa, Least Developed Countries and Special Programs. Mussie has worked in development for 30 years, and in his spare time, he enjoys reading, hiking, and listening to music. Well, welcome back, Mussie.
Sarah, thank you for having me. It's a delight all the time speaking to you.
Wonderful. Well, that is a great introduction. Thank you. Of course, small island developing states are many and diverse. So how have they coped with their multiple crises in recent years?
They are threatened, as you said, by global warming, climate change, sea level rises, floods. What name them? Seas, they face multiple challenges. They are diverse, but the crises that seas face are beyond imagination. They are heavily indebted economies. They face huge natural disasters, most frequent natural disasters. Their trade and their share in global trade and output and investment is minuscule. They are the countries that are isolated from the international trading and development system. But these are critical challenges for the international community, for the United Nations, and for the states themselves. Now, how can they cope with that? Also varies. For example, COVID is one of the greatest global calamities that we have seen in the modern times. But the only thing that saved seeds was that they were very small relative to big countries, but they also put a lot of containment mechanisms early in the wake of the pandemic. But their economies were ravaged. The tourism, when there is heavy restriction on travel and tourism, seeds were the most hit economies in the world. But they managed to come out of the crisis. Now we see more brighter future for the seas, but it was not that easy for them to cope with all the multiple crises that they have been facing.
What particular challenges do they face in the future?
If there is no action taken now, seas will have existential threat if there is no measure to help seas move forward. So the loss in terms of the ecosystem, biodiversity, and human loss, it will be difficult, too ghastly to imagine if there is no concrete action taken in terms of building their resilience to this kind of excessive external shocks. Most of the time we forget to address the specific challenges these countries face, because for seeds, what is it that they can offer? What are the comparative advantages that they have? How are they going to harness those comparative advantages that they face? They have huge potential. Marine resources are core in the seas. They have huge bioprospecting potential for the new pharmaceuticals. They have core comparative advantage in some of the services sectors. But we are talking of new kind of services sector that are knowledge intensive and technology intensive, not services that are vulnerable to any external shocks. So if we build their resilience, if we foster green productive capacities for seeds, if we address some of the sectoral comparative advantages, whether it is in tourism, in services, and even in agriculture for some of the seeds, I think there is a kind of bright future for the seeds ahead.
What are the priorities for economies, societies, and the environment so that seeds can achieve this resilience and prosperity that you talk of?
Most of the time we talk about tourism only. Seeds are the tourism economies. But take Singapore. What are the drivers in Singapore? It's aerospace technologies in supply chains management, in transportation, in logistics. There are leaders in electronics, in new technologies. So there is huge potential for seeds. Mauritius, when I was a student, is just known for the production and export of tea and sugar. Today, Mauritius is a vibrant economy, leading in the financial intermediaries, leading in the ICT technologies, even in the manufacturing sector. This is the only island in the Indian Ocean that is really harnessing the huge potential of the fisheries sector and the maritime resources as well. So when we see this kind of opportunities, there is huge potential for seeds, but we have to change the narrative. We have to have a new narrative, a new discourse on seeds development, and discourse that are based on evidence and based on the data, and also discourse that see development in the long-term trajectories. These are critical for seeds as we move forward.
Mussie, you talk about a new narrative that's needed. Now, looking at the UN conference on island states happening this month, what steps or solutions would you like to see? And can we really relieve the pressure on SIDS and support their sustainable development?
The conference must be a new conference. Business as usual is no longer an option for SIDS. We need a scale issue. For example, the loss and damage fund that was established, that was agreed at COP2. Still, it is way below its target. There must be a scaling up of those kind of funds which will target the specific vulnerabilities of seeds. It's vital, very important. But more importantly, we have to forge triangular relationship between seeds and other developing nations and also the developed countries to assist seeds to make a headway. So the conference must be seized as an opportunity to renew not only the past commitments, but what kind of a scale issue, what kind of magnitude, what amount of resources are necessary to address those colossal challenges which seeds are making. Some of them are not their own creations. Global warming is not the creation of seeds. They contribute very little to climate change, but they are the ones that are suffering the most as well. So we need to balance these kind of things. So we need to have this kind of commitment, new commitment, both in terms of quality, in terms of scale, and in terms of magnitude. So this is what the conference is aspiring to do.
Well, thank you so much, Mussie. That was UN Trade and Development's Mussie Delelegn, who is this week's guest. Tune in to the weekly Tradecast next week and every week for more insights on the most pressing issues around the world of trade and development. And there's even more on our website, UNCTAD.org. I'm Sarah Toms in Geneva. Goodbye for now.